Hey team, welcome back to XRP Lab, your go-to source for everything XRP and Ripple. Today we're doing something a little different, similar to last week. I'm bringing you this update with a real human voice. Thank you to those in the comments that have commented on it. While for whatever reason the YouTube gods or the algorithm gods did not really enjoy the human version last time, or maybe it was the sound of my voice that just didn't get the traction. But I do appreciate everyone who says that they enjoy the real human interaction. So this effort is really for you. Today is no text to speech. It's just me here to share my latest insights, news, and analysis in the world of XRP. So let's dive into what's new and exciting today. All right, so let's get into it. Today we'll be driving deep into the heart of XRP and the broader cryptocurrency landscape. First, we'll kick things off with a detailed review of XRP's price action. We'll explore the technicals. I'll provide you with a midterm forecast and see how XRP is correlating with Bitcoin and the top 30 cryptocurrencies. It's crucial to understand the broader market dynamics to get a sense of XRP might be heading. And I'm not just talking about Bitcoin or wider crypto altcoins. I'm actually talking about the tech and the overall market in terms of seasonality. So, as you may or may not know, the next month, from a seasonality point of view, is typically a drop in the market, usually in the tech space, which I'm assuming is something that we'll be witnessing in the crypto space as well. Next, we will address the big question, why XRP? What's the real value here? There's a lot of noise and hype in the crypto space, and in particular in XRP. And typically, XRP is hyped up to basically keep the dream alive for everyone. But today, I want to share my genuine perspective on XRP's path forward. We'll discuss the implications of the Ripple IPO, what it could mean for XRP, and delve deep into the ongoing legal battles. And I'll provide you with a view on how I think it will turn out, and obviously the implications from it. The outcome of these events could significantly shape XRP's future, as you would appreciate, and I'll be sharing my thoughts on what this means for investors and the community. As I mentioned before, I've noticed a massive tendency in the crypto world to hype up news, often keeping the dream more alive than the reality. Today, I'm here to offer a realistic, practical viewpoint, which may differ from the common narrative. My goal is to help you think long term about your investment and engagement with XRP, and also to provide you an alternative view on where we're heading. If you find value in this discussion today, please drop a comment below. Your engagement really helps, especially if you stick with us until the end. Let's get the YouTube algorithm to know that real thoughtful content is valuable to you, giving a real human voice a chance to be heard in the vast crypto conversation. So let's get started. Let's dive deep into the complex, intriguing world of XRP Ripple. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Like, and comment this video. Thank you. All right, so we're going to first start with the price action. This is a macro view, so essentially the last 2 to 3 years. As you can see, we're in a wedge pattern formation. We're actually edging towards the end of the wedge. Typically, these break upwards. Now, the reality is in the crypto world, typically there needs to be a liquidity grab, which basically means we need to drop below this line to most likely around the 40 cents area for the whales to pick up a decent chunk of volume, and only then can we actually start appreciating significantly higher. Unfortunately, that's how these things just play out. Now we'll get into a bit more detail. So I'm going to get into the 3 month view. Essentially, this is the wedge. There was a downtrending line, which we've broken around mid-Feb. We've broken through the resistance. Now we're making our way towards the top of the wedge. Now the reality is, I actually don't foresee us moving significantly higher. I think that from a trading pattern point of view and where Bitcoin is and seeing that the alts are starting to fall, I actually think that we'll move to the bottom of the wedge, essentially back to support line. And depending on how the rest of the crypto plays out, as well as the seasonality, we might end up doing a further liquidity grab and essentially shifting our way further up from then. But for the time being, over the next 2 weeks, I actually see us potentially testing the resistance line here, which we're not very far from, but essentially then reverting back to the support line. The next thing that I'd want to discuss with you guys is the relative strength or relative weakness of XRP to Bitcoin. Now, what you're seeing in front of you is 4 years of XRP against Bitcoin. Now, just to make it really clear, anytime that you see a decline, this is a decline in XRP value against Bitcoin. As you can see, over the last 4 years, there's been a gradual decline in XRP value against Bitcoin. In particular, over the last 6 months, so from July onwards, there's been a gradual strength in Bitcoin against XRP, or a gradual weakness of XRP against Bitcoin. Um, some can argue that we're essentially getting towards some sort of resistance line here, and there's going to be a reversal. My position on it, the only way that we would see a significant reversal in XRP against Bitcoin is if there's a positive outcome from the legal case. That is the only way that I truly see. So essentially, similar to the God candle that we see here, that is the only way that I see a significant jump of XRP against Bitcoin. I either forecast a slight horizontal grind or potentially just a slow decline. I find this chart particularly useful for cycles. So, whether you want to hodl XRP for the longest possible time, or you actually play the cycles. From a cycle point of view, I typically use this as an opportunity to either get out of XRP into Bitcoin or potentially start selling Bitcoin and shifting into XRP. This chart actually provides a pretty clear picture. But overall, as you can see, over the last 4 years, XRP has been gradually losing value against Bitcoin. I'm not saying that won't change going forward, but the reality is Bitcoin is the number one and the largest cryptocurrency by market cap. From a branding point of view, the amount of money that's currently being pumped into it, its positioning, and the news, I do foresee that over a longer period of time, this downtrend will continue. However, you can obviously play the cycles as you choose, and this XRP to Bitcoin chart is a pretty good way for you to be able to know when to jump out of XRP into Bitcoin and the reverse. Now, this next chart is actually very interesting. So what you're looking at is essentially XRP, which is the white red bars, and top 30 cryptocurrencies, so essentially the green red bars from the beginning of this year. So what this essentially shows you is when the Ripple news came out, Ripple significantly outperformed all its peers. Since then, it's been a gradual grind down. In the beginning of the Bitcoin ETF saga, XRP was actually enjoying an uplift similar to the rest of the top 30 cryptocurrencies, but then slowly became a gradual decline. So as you can see from the previous charts, this is essentially the downtrending channel that it's been going through, and we've recently just broken. So what this chart essentially shows you is that since the beginning of the year, Ripple's up 66%, while the top 30 crypto are up 144. So in order to catch up from where we are today, XRP would need to move up by around 44% to actually catch up with its peers. So what this shows us is how significant the move has been by other cryptocurrencies that Ripple hasn't really taken a part of, mainly due to the legal battle and essentially the FUD that keeps persisting around XRP and Ripple. Now, it's also really important to understand what actually happened in this point in time where Ripple started significantly underperforming its peers and essentially shifting down, while the rest of the market continued moving up together with Bitcoin. So, what is the point in time? What happened here that created this cognitive dissonance in understanding of Ripple and its deviation from where the market is heading? And that is the next storyline which I would like to discuss with you. So I'll start off with the obvious, which is the legal case or the Ripple SEC legal case. And obviously, this isn't a secret that SEC is using this to create a landmark case and is seeking to set a legal precedent to slap every coin CEO with a forced listing on NASDAQ. And I think eventually a full regulation of crypto, possibly with the exception of Bitcoin. I know these are not the news that you may want to hear, but we do have to look at the reality of what's happening, where government eventually will step in to regulate crypto, and most likely that will be by getting the coins to be listed on Nasdaq or be fully regulated through exchanges. So Ripple was turned into a martyr. However, I can see that Brad has a plan to turn this around, and this is essentially what this part of the story will be about. Now, to explain what I think will happen, I need to take a step back and actually walk you through the typical tech investment cycle, which fundamentally crypto follows. While it's a different asset class, the reality is from a financing point of view and getting the investments in, it follows a very similar path. Obviously, crypto enables more people to come in simply because it's available for more retail investors to jump in, where typically in the past it would have been angel and seed rounds. So let's start from the bottom. So if you kind of think from a tiny crypto an idea is listed. Typically, you go to your friends and family, ask them for money, or use your own funds. Sometimes you go to angel investors, which are people who specialize in and provide you 20, 50, 100K to start off the project. Now, as you grow, so fundamentally in the tiny crypto space, friends and family and angel investors are your go-to. Once you gain traction, once there's a bit of publicity, once you actually have a very clear utility and a very clear output, and let's say you're tracking or you're making money or at least you're getting a community following, the next stage is small cap. So small cap crypto receive bigger investment flows. So we typically get seed funding from bigger players, and seed funding can either be debt. Usually high yield debt. I guess that's a slightly irrelevant point, but yeah, so it would either be debt or it would be a significant investment where an organization or an individual will actually try to get a significant part of the company, essentially to compensate them for the risk of the investment. Once that grows into a bigger level, a large cap where Ripple fundamentally sits, that would be managed at a venture capital stage. Now, venture capital typically has multi-million dollar funds which invest in specific asset classes. Those asset classes are usually quite risky, but at the same time, they are fairly mature and they are pre-IPO. IPO stands for initial public offering. It usually is if you are a private company that wants to be listed on an exchange, you then go through a process called the IPO, the initial public offering, to offer your company to retail or sophisticated investors. So Ripple currently sits within the venture capital area. Now, the next bit, and obviously private equity, so venture capital, private equity. Now, the only crypto that has had a real IPO is Bitcoin, which is basically that next level of financial investment. It's typically when once there's a mature product, service, utility, the organization goes to the market and the market essentially buys in. So retail plus significant institutional players, which typically don't play within the smaller, quote unquote, riskier space. So once again, the only real crypto that has had an IPO is Bitcoin. So essentially, the ETF gives an individual and institutional investors the ability to buy into the asset when it's listed on the exchange. So Bitcoin now received its IPO-like listing through the ETF. As you may have heard, Ripple is looking to IPO in March. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because it will provide a clear delineation between Ripple and XRP, giving investors the ability to invest in Ripple, which in turn would give Ripple the cash to invest in larger scale service offering and global payment solutions such as the CBDC projects. So while I'm not a fan of CBDC, Ripple will be in a top position globally to dominate the global payments and integration solutions across different CBDCs. So, what does this all mean for XRP? Well, with Ripple being listed, there will be a clear regulated delineation between Ripple and XRP. So essentially, the legal case against Ripple will no longer need to be made. Ripple being the company and the developer of services and products, and XRP obviously being the value token, which would represent the utility value of the network expanded by Ripple. So, a very clear delineation between the token and the developer slash service products integration, etc. So, the utility token will be a true representation, let's call it brand, of the perceptive value that the public places upon it. If we think of Metcalfe's law, which fundamentally is looking at so thinking about the value or capitalization of a concept directly correlates with its utility and utilization. So if we think of Metcalfe's law in particular in relation to XRP, here the value of the utility will be the overall solution that Ripple creates within the CBDC world, within global finance, essential representation of a centralized, in this case, a centralized utility token. So the reason why you have this chart in front of you is I truly believe that XRP will be not the same as Bitcoin because obviously it's one's a fully decentralized solution. There is no organization that essentially manages Bitcoin. Ripple is an organization that is truly the developer, has roadmaps, and is going to work with different governments globally to create a global payment system plus a global CBDC framework slash system. So, what do I mean by it, or why is that important? While I don't think that that XRP will necessarily follow Bitcoin's path in terms of capitalization. So on screen, you can now see a comparison between Ripple capitalization, which is basically the lower graph, the white and red bars, versus Bitcoin, which is the green and red. You can clearly see that Bitcoin capitalization percentage wise is significantly outperforming Ripple by around 600%. Now, the reason why I compare the two is if we use the logic of Metcalfe's law and the value of an entity or a coin or a token is fundamentally the perceptive value of its utility to the users and the holders, then in theory, while I don't think that Ripple is going to rip all the way to the same level of Bitcoin, because from a brand perception point of view, Bitcoin is way more pumped, way more known. It is the go to initial asset. I do think that there's a case to be made that at least halfway to where Bitcoin currently sits, which is another 300%, is a very realistic target for XRP holders to expect XRP to move within the next 12 months. So in our case, there would be around 1.5 to 1.7 dollars per coin, possibly more, possibly less. At the end of the day, the actual value of XRP as a token slash coin really comes down to us as individual users placing a conceptual value on how much do we think it's worth. it could be worth 5, but in that case, the roadmap and the global brand of XRP needs to be shifting significantly faster. Similar to kind of the Bitcoin, it's on the news, it's everywhere. So, long story short, I believe that there's a true case for XRP to be at least 3, possibly 5 times of where it sits today once the case gets resolved, once Ripple is a listed entity through an IPO. And the second part of it, given the fact that there's a fixed number of tokens, I believe that Ripple as a listed entity can use the cash flow that it receives from operations and investors to essentially buy XRP. So essentially push the price significantly higher. So I think there's a number of organic and perceptive value reasons for XRP to be significantly higher where it is. Now, hopefully you've enjoyed listening to this video as much as I've enjoyed creating it. Wish you all a great day, and hopefully this was way more interesting than the typical AI content. Now, one final disclaimer: this is educational content, not an investment advice. And with that in mind, I wish you all a great day ahead, and stay invested.